Hey, I'm Owen.
Hi, I'm Suzana.
And welcome back to the next page of this scene that I'm so excited to tell. I love, before we get started, I really like that I left, I don't do this a lot, but I left you a note on this first panel that says this is a metaphorical scene.
And then I still took it very literally.
You did, yeah.
As I usually do.
I actually really liked the direction you took it, so
that's good.
I didn't mind, but now, in looking back at the beginning stages of this recording, I see, like, what does it say? Train station, this is a metaphorical pen. I think when I thumbnailed this, I kind of meant for it to be, like, it doesn't even need to literally be a train behind them. She can just be pulling him metaphorically through their lives together or something. Yeah,
I like the idea of that, but whenever I go to draw something like that, it's like something in my brain just tells me, like, grounded in reality.
Yeah, it's not a bad choice. I think, because you tend to do that, toy ends up being more consistent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I tend to add in these little, like, I guess they're more like eggs of actual, like, storytelling bits.
Yeah. Backgrounds being expositional.
Yeah.
And I do like the literal use of it instead. I just really liked that I just now, in this moment, remembered that I did that. It's super funny.
Yeah, I think there's even one in the third panel there. I think it's already deleted by now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I think, another metaphor. You know, as I do.
I really like how this page came out.
Yeah.
When we were talking last episode, we were talking about how the scene has been particularly exhausting for us.
Oh, yeah.
Usually pages that are very background heavy are pretty exhausting for us anyway.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why using the 3D model for the backgrounds was helping so significantly.
Oh, yeah.
And that was even in the case of when it was the same background every time.
Yeah. When
we do these sequences that have, like, a different background every time, and also they're still full backgrounds every time, it's pretty strenuous. And these pages do take us, as not just in the research beforehand, but also in the time it takes to draw them. They're definitely some of the most time-consuming pages we do, and also some of the most intensive work that comes, when we do these actual pages. So... but they are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. I tend to like drawing backgrounds. They are time-consuming, but I do like drawing them.
I have noticed that about you.
Yeah.
That you really like them, which is why I never feel too guilty.
Yeah.
about, doing something that's kind of heavy on them. But in the thick of it, it really can be quite a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely time-consuming. There is always a lot of planning, and you can see now even the difference of having gone from the 3D models back to having to plan them.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of, like, time spent into trying to develop these each individual pieces.
Yeah.
Having to develop where the walls are, or in the case of the train, like, where the height of it is and the height of the people, and having to just adjust little things like that.
Yeah, I think we talked about this once, too, about how I'm very bad at telling how tall a person should be compared to elements of a background.
Oh, yeah. I think that's actually really difficult, because I even struggle with that sometimes. I think, like, very frequently something will be just slightly off, and you just have to adjust it until it looks correct.
Right.
And as long as it looks correct, it shouldn't matter too much.
Right.
But sometimes even then, I still have to go through and try to size someone to something. You'll see me throw down little perspective lines.
Yeah.
Drawing, like, a person to a certain point, and then drawing that point to another person to see how their heights compare.
And I know, like, when we would do, when we would take trips and do specifically, like, I would take photos to use as background references.
Yeah.
It would be something that I would try to keep in mind when I did take pictures, that I would make sure to get you in some of the shots.
Yeah.
So that we could have, like, a person physically present in the references to make sure. Because there's a lot of cases where, like, I don't know, like, when we do research for scenes like this, sometimes you can't find references that have people in the shot.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Or at least maybe not even, like... let's say, like, you have a reference of a street, and you have somebody in the foreground or something, but, like, you don't have somebody in the spot where you need to measure a person against the background even.
Yeah.
And that can, like, throw things off pretty wildly too.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I can always grab, like I said, the perspective lines, and I can draw, if there's a person in the foreground, I can draw that person to that height,
right,
and then just pull them back to that point that I need it in. And so I can kind of guesstimate the size of a person, but it's always a lot easier when you have an actual physical person there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in real life, a lot of things are to be accounted for. You have like hills and little changes. Right. Like there's no such thing as like a perfect perspective.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
You have to have a level building for that.
Exactly. And as long as it looks pretty correct, then it's fine. I think for me it's just odd. Like in the instance I mentioned, like when I take photos and you specifically are like in the photo, sometimes to look back at them, I'm very confused because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have expected. Like you in frame are very small compared to what I would have. If I were to draw that scene myself just from memory, I might have drawn you like taller in the frame, or I might have made a first floor of a building come down with a less high ceiling. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like not internally, but like if a person is standing next to a building, I might have accidentally made you come up higher on the building than a person might have if that's like a scene I was going to draw. Yeah. So sometimes it can be kind of confusing. So I don't know. So the research involved in this, and then also not having a model for it, and then making sure, you know, everything kind of looks correct and it's all sized up based on sometimes very limited references. Yeah. Can be pretty time consuming, especially if you need to like find multiple references that even provide the amount of information you even need. Yeah, that's definitely real. And especially as you get to like these time period kinds of things. Yeah. I have to then search for a time period appropriate thing too. Right. So, like even in this first panel, it's early 70s and I had to search in trains from that era. Yeah. And then like find a train that fits the era and find like people in clothing that fits that era. Yeah. And then just like match little things like that. Like, it's kind of interesting to think, like, the luggage that they used in that time period is very different from luggage that you would have seen in the 90s. Yeah. Because, like, we had roller baggages and everything like that. Yeah. Where it's like, when I was looking through the pictures, I didn't see a single roller bag at all. Oh. But I was just thinking, like, how bizarre it is that I've never even thought about when a bag on wheels was invented. Yeah. And it probably even was before then. I'm sure that it must go back into, I don't know, maybe the 60s, 50s? Yeah. It has to. Right. But, like, no one had it in the 70s in those pictures I looked at. Interesting. So it must have not been that common, but I'll have to look up when they were actually invented. Yeah. Because I have no idea. I just guess. I literally didn't even think about that. Yeah. I probably would have given them a bag with wheels, and then someone from the 70s would have been like, what? I think I expected you to do a bag with wheels. Yeah. And then it was not something that, once you'd produced this panel, it's not something I thought about again enough to, like, ask. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it was really weird, because it's like, I remember having a bag with wheels coming out of the 80s. So it's like, they must have been ready by then. I actually... We traveled a lot when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Not, we didn't fly much. Mm-hmm. So I would, I don't know. Actually, now to think about it, I don't know if I can remember what I guess because we traveled a lot of, like, car trips. Mm-hmm. I don't think we had roller baggage when I was very, very little. Yeah. But I think that was more a stylistic choice. I guess I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of little things about the comic like that, really, it's not until, like, you plan out the whole panel and you know you need a train station and you know you need the fashion from the time and you know you need, fashion from a certain part of the world for this person, fashion from a certain other part of the world for this person. And then you need, like, the fashion of what a kid their age would be wearing to, like, a concert versus what they'd be wearing on a train, right? Yeah. And you know what to plan and research for all that. But then it really is weird how, like, you'll come down to, like, oh no, I put a bag in his hand and now I need to research that too. And it's like, how many little facets of things, like, you don't even realize you need to look up until you physically have, like, drawn his hand and now you have to draw what's in it. Yeah. So odd. Just not something I would have thought of. And I don't know, I run into that a lot with, like, even Milo and Liam, they're based in, I think the comic's in 2011 now. Oh. It's right at the beginning of 2011. They just finished 2010. Sure? I feel like we've had the same exact conversation. I also thought it was 2012. I'm very certain it's 2011 because Archie and Allie's wedding was 10-10-10, wasn't it? Or was it 10-10-11? I'm pretty sure it was 10-10-10. Okay. I'm going to take your word on it. I'll take your word on it. Now I'm not certain. Right? Oh, no. I'm always losing track of it. Well, fair enough. Well, as if it were. Say as if it were 2011. Sure. I'm very certain it's 2011 because Liam just turned 20 in the comic. Yes. So so Milo would be turning 20 soon in the comic. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's the beginning of 2011.
Milo has turned 20, officially, as of these pages.
Oh, okay, so then it's at the end of January.
Yes,
then.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we skipped Milo's birthday.
We did.
But we also skipped Liam's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No one has birthdays anymore. It's
no, because birthdays are boring.
It would be so difficult if we like went through the comic and each time that we got to their birthday like stopped boring.
It's more so like things like that are very as much as Toy is a slice of life, I still do have like a kind of overarching story I'm trying to tell with it. Whereas like I think I have like stories in the future I'd like to tell that would be more slice of life-esque, where it's like I'd love to take the time to really sit with the characters in like a day-to-day thing. Yeah. Especially in a situation that needs more time to unfold, I think. But like when I started this story, it was very like I want to tell like basically these characters like coming of age and then follow a little bit of their biggest emotional developments in that pocket of time. Do you know what I mean? And so to spend a ton of time on slice of life, like day-to-day stuff, to me feels like it's not contributing to this like direct point. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So
that's, you know,
in the future I definitely will, but for this one it just didn't feel relevant. But but yeah, so you were saying even today for like modern, quote unquote modern stuff for 2011, right, you still like in looking up references for that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that 2011 really wasn't that long ago. We're talking 9 years of difference now.
Yes, yeah.
And I'll go to draw something like, oh, I want to draw one of them taking a selfie. And then I have to remember the phones that we had in 2011 and what they were capable of. Yeah. Or even like going back like to doing like art of them in 2009. Yeah. And it's like, what kind of phone would they have had then and what would have been capable of? Yeah. We didn't have the camera that was like forward facing on a lot of phones.
Yeah, forward facing was kind of a new-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like having a flip phone and trying to take pictures of myself. You'd take it in the mirror. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did that for a long time because like I was still thinking in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So they probably would too.
Yeah.
It was just kind of funny to think about because when I go to draw them, I'm thinking now with my 2020 brain.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
All right, you just turn it to forward facing or whatever, and they can't do that.
This is why I'm excited for a time skip.
Yeah. Let's go forward in time.
And also why I'm excited for a comic that's set very far in the past.
Yes.
Because I feel like there's like a divorcing of like needing to be accurate in that way specifically when you know none of it's going to be accurate to you. So just do the research and don't even try. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Just at some point it's a little bit of fantasy.
Yeah. It's a little bit of fantasy and the best you can do with what references you can even find.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Just a wing and a prayer.
Just go for it.
Yeah. Just tell a story.
Whenever I think of like writing like something that's really far in the past, I think of that Mark Twain book, the Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Oh, I don't think I read it.
I think it's Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. And it's so wildly inaccurate. But of course it is.
It's fun. Yeah, that's fun.
He didn't have the internet to go look up anything. And, you know, just had fun with it.
Yeah. I love that, actually. I do. So, do you want to talk a little bit about how we find references for scenes like this?
Oh, right. So, with this one, like the train itself, I had to very specifically look up trains in the area, with like actual people traveling in the area that they're actually traveling in.
Sure.
So that was actually kind of funny. I ended up having to go through like German trains in that era and where they would be going throughout Europe.
I love that, and it also started with first we looked up, because for the previous page it starts at a concert.
Yes.
So the whole first bit of research started with we have to look up specifically what were really big spots for concerts to take place in. And Germany is bopping.
Oh yeah.
Like really,
there was some big musicians
still
yeah.
Honestly still, but
that's true.
But yeah, so really conducive to specifically this. So then once you pinpoint your location based on like really popular concert spots in the year that you're looking for, and then you can build out from there, right?
Yeah.
So you build like trains in that specific area in a specific time. I do remember when you were looking through references for this too, you found a lot of interior shots.
I did, and it's such a shame that I didn't get to use any of them. Yeah, because the trains back then were really cool. Yeah,
like it was cute. A lot of the interior shots were very like communal. Yeah, like really cute. It looked cozy. Like a lot of people like hanging out, kind of like. Almost like cuddling, like little like circles of friends, like kind of like shoulder to shoulder and, you know, smoking together or like, you know what I mean?
Cigarettes inside of the train too. And then that was so wild to me because I even got to like the second panel and as I was drawing it, I realized like, of course he'd have an ashtray on his desk inside of the house.
Oh my God.
Which like, we don't really have anymore.
When I saw you draw that, you're drawing it right now actually as of this recording. When I saw that you had drawn that, I had such a flashback moment where literally when I was growing up, everyone had the ashtray on the kitchen table.
The little crystal one?
Yeah, the crystal one. That really brought me, because that is not a thing anymore. In my family now, I don't think any of them smoke anymore. Not that, well, maybe very, very few and far between. Like, I have maybe, like, an aunt and, like, a cousin or something. Very few and far between. But not indoors. Yeah. Nobody ever indoors anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
But when I was a kid, literally everyone who came over smoked. Everyone who lived in the house, except my mom, smoked. Always a crystal ashtray full of ashes on the table.
Oh, and they always reeked. Oh, they were the worst. I don't think, not a single relative of mine that did smoke inside is still alive. Like, oh, no. They were all very old.
No, you're right. Same.
Like, most of them probably, I think the last one that I remember probably passed on like 15 years ago.
No, I do have two. Two older relatives who used to smoke indoors are still alive.
Wow. Yeah. Good for them.
I know. They quit very many years ago. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All these relatives, like, they used to smoke all the time, like chain smoking. Yeah. Like, I'm talking like a pack a day at least. And it was just like, as a kid, that was so normal. Yeah. And that's the 90s.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was just like coming right out of the 70s. They already knew it was dangerous.
Yeah, but they didn't care. Yeah. Whatever,
They were already long into the addiction. So.
But I can tell you that really brought me back. Like, seeing the ashtray on the table, that really brought me back. That was crazy. I literally, because I didn't thumbnail that was not planned for at all, but you put that in. Little things like that are some of my favorite things that you do. Stuff that I did not put there, but you put in that surprised me.
You know, my brain surprised me too. Because it's like, as I drew out this desk, I had to completely guess this room. Sure. This room isn't based on anything.
No, I'm not even, to look back on it, I'm not even sure, like, I guess it would be an apartment that they were living in, I
was thinking about it, like, they probably had a flat at the time that they were renting, and, as I was, like, looking at it, I was like, well, I probably would want to give him, like, his own separate office that he was doing his, like, schoolwork in. Sure. So I, like, kind of drew this, like, very vague office, and then, like, as I was, like, trying to fill it out with, like, what would be, like, 70s kind of builds, like, that early 80s, late 70s kind of feeling.
Kind of architecture, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, like, it makes sense that he would just have cigarettes inside. I know he smokes. Yeah. So.
Crazy to me.
Yeah. Just a weird little memory, like, put into him.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked this. I liked this panel. I liked, I think originally I had you have a mustache on him in this panel.
Yeah. You could see it in the sketch,
too. Yeah, you can, yeah. And I thought, like, it aged him too quickly. Yeah. He would be in his early 30s here?
Yeah, probably, like, very early 30s.
We see him
31, 32.
In the first panel on this page and the previous page. Yeah. He's in his late 20s. Yeah. So in this panel, he's in his early 30s.
Yeah. Closer to our age now.
Closer to our age now. But you know, like my dad had the mustache at that age, and even before, even like in his mid-20s, he'd already done like the Flanders mustache, and you know, so
I would too if I had it.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I liked it for him, but like to see it visually on him, I felt like it aged him so quickly.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? I was like.
It's because we're so used to already seeing him with facial hair that, like, for us it kind of translates to an older Eli.
Yes.
And it's like when you get rid of that, you can imagine him so drastically younger.
Yes.
That it does make sense to keep it off a little bit longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Get one more panel of him with his face clear.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. I think I also had you, dampen his smile very slightly.
Yeah, I had his smile a little bit bigger before.
Yeah, which I love. I love that he's smiling all throughout this page. Mm-hmm. It's really sweet to me. I don't think I didn't thumbnail that. I think that was also a little surprise that you did, and I really liked it.
I've always pictured him being very smiley around her, like very fond.
Yeah,
he's just madly in love with her.
Never smiled until he met her.
Yeah,
never smiled after.
Oh, no. I love the thought, like, this is also him telling his story. Yeah. And so as he would remember it, he would remember smiling.
Yeah, he would remember being very fond. Yeah.
So this is like a little bit of those, that rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, for sure. So in building references for this, doing a little bit of, like, finding the area that you're talking about, finding the fashion that you're looking for. So this page in particular was kind of interesting to me because it's also marking the growth of their wealth on top of the changing of era, right? So in this panel here that we're working on, it's late 70s.
Yeah.
We're coming from before in the earlier panels.
Yeah.
Early 70s, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We're going into the 80s, right? And so not only is it kind of the shift in, how do I say it? The shift in, like, year to year, how the fashion changes year to year. It's also a little bit, Eli has gone to law school between this current panel and the last, and he's become a lawyer. Yeah. And so they're kind of becoming a little more affluent. Yeah. I definitely could see for both of them kind of coming from kind of poorer situations beforehand. And
he also went to school kind of late. Yeah. Considering.
Yeah. And so you see, like, in the way they're dressing, like, he's bought her furs. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? For this panel, he himself is, like, starting to dress more professional. He's not got his shirt collar popped open and his chest hair hanging out. But he's also at a party, but you know what I mean?
He's also not wearing a jacket.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, scandalous, spicy boy. Yeah, but so I really liked that. Was fun to play with too. Yeah, and it's kind of cool because you can kind of go through in looking for these kinds of, like, styles and stuff. There's, at least in terms of fashion, this is something that a ton of people are really interested in. Yeah. So it's something that gets very well documented. Oh yeah, and it's really fun to kind of dive through for that, where everyone loves tracking fashion. That's like everyone, you know what I mean? People who are into history almost. There's a huge overlap between people who are into history for history's sake and also people who are into the fashion aspect of that part of history, right? Yeah. And so there's so many, like, fashion magazines scanned and documented, you know what I mean? So you can kind of follow, like, what was popular at the time for this age group and this age group. There's a little bit of a focus on, I would say, like, 20s. Yeah. So sometimes it's a little hard to find what Eli and Reva would wear to a party in their 30s. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Especially
they don't really document that age group as much.
Especially as, like, they themselves would be going into a new decade with their own preferences from the previous decade. Right, yeah. So it's tough, at least for me, to kind of capture that aesthetic of, like, this is a person who kind of matured the previous decade mentally and is kind of taking some of their preferences with them into each decade while staying not so unfashionable because they're buying new clothes still. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not staying so stuck in the previous decade that they're unfashionable for it. Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of a challenge too.
Yeah, that's definitely, like, something that you have to constantly keep in mind as you're trying to, like, age them and dance them through the ages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually really had a lot of fun with that too, with them especially, because I could always picture them actually going through most of their life before Liam, being very fashionable,
sure.
being kind of that attractive couple that's like, they're married and don't have children, they can go and do whatever they want, and how lovely, like, people that know them think of them as like little partiers, and like they're just like the very attractive couple that go out to things.
They go out all the time, they go on vacations, they're super they have all this money that they don't have to spend on kids. How lucky they are that they can do all this nice stuff. Sure.
They probably were treated that way by a lot of their friends and kind of like grew into that themselves, thinking of themselves as that way.
Yeah, I do like it. Oh, she makes me sad.
I know. I love her.
Yeah, I like her. I like her a lot. Do you want to talk about Riva a little bit? I mean, we're kind of on, as sad as it is to say, she's not in the comic much.
Yeah, and there's no reason for her to really be.
Yeah.
The comic is about her son and not her,
and she's not alive anymore. You know what I mean? So as much as I think it's important, and I'm happy that he's at this point where he can process her a little more, and also he's coming to a point where he can sit in this room and have this conversation, as reluctant as he was to really get into it, and how I think clearly it's Eli who needs to have the conversation a little bit more.
Yeah,
and Liam may not be like as ready and mature for it as, you know, he could possibly be, that it still is a good, I'm happy that he can have this conversation in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm happy we're at this point of the story, that he can actually, like, sit and kind of absorb this story.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably something that he's always struggled talking to his dad about.
Yes, yeah. I like to think of it as, this is probably a subject that Eli has tried with him a lot. And when Liam shuts it down and doesn't want to talk about it, that's kind of why it builds this resentment between them. Like, Liam will walk away from it kind of resenting that it came up. Yeah. And Eli kind of walks away from it resenting that it wasn't possible.
Yeah, he can't even talk to his son about these things.
Yeah, exactly. And who else is he going to talk to about them? Like, who else is as affected as he is? You know what I mean? So I like that this has been kind of a source of resentment for both of them for a while. And I like that you see now that Liam is in therapy on his own terms. Yeah. And in a better situation with boundaries, he's establishing slowly his boundaries in a healthy way. He can now start to have these conversations also in a healthy way. Yeah. And I'm not sure, I don't know how much of this Liam will absorb now, but I'm excited at least that the conversation is happening now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of fun for us to get to explore, and it builds a little bit for the audience to understand what's going on in his life. Sure. Why he is a little bit the way he is. Yeah. And also why Eli is the way he is. Yeah. And why they do struggle as much as they do. Yeah. And it's like, it's more for the audience than it is for Liam at this point.
Yeah. I think Liam, there's some stuff to be gained for Liam. I think there's some stuff that that obviously he's going to take going forward now, but I think this is like, he's young, so there's a lot of like little things that he needs to like bring with him into the future to unpack. Yeah. But I'm excited for him to be able to start having these conversations. So
yeah, me too.
So this is one of the very few times I think that we'll see her. She is unfortunately part of his past, and so, you know what I mean, it's not something that we touch on very much, or that we probably will touch on very much in the future, but this is a little pocket of time she gets to live in, and it hurts me.
It's a little painful.
Yeah, it's a little painful. So yeah, Riva.
Yeah.
How about it?
She's a good girl. Kinda.
She's a wild child.
She is a wild child. But that's like what I always love about her. Is like, this is also why Alphonse remembers her really strongly.
Yeah, yeah.
So Alphonse is like, he was older than Liam. Yes. So he knew her better.
I think he's like a good decade older than Liam.
Yeah, easily. He would have known Riva before Liam even existed. And Riva would have been his cool aunt.
Yeah, yeah. Alphonse obviously himself has some wanderlust.
Yeah.
And so...
Probably a little fed by her, too,
oh, for sure. Yeah, that's probably true. And so would have probably really loved to hear her stories about all the places she'd been and kind of idolized that and wanted to be that himself.
Yeah, wish that they were his parents.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. His parents are so stuffy.
Yeah.
They're so, like, stick in the mud. Kind of like how Eli was naturally. You know what I mean? But
he would just look at them and think, like, they were the cool parents. And Liam was so lucky to have such cool parents.
The cool ones.
Do anything.
Man, I want to go on a train and go off into Europe and disappear and make my way and somehow make ends meet by the skin of my teeth and pure luck. Yeah.
I love that for him.
Yeah.
I also love to imagine, like, that's a little bit what he was expecting in crashing at Eli's place.
Yeah.
Is, like, somehow he was going to absorb this, like, cool dad out of his uncle.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, now he sees what it's actually like, and he's probably still just imagining it's cooler than it actually is.
I like to think he's just temporarily stuck before he, like, moves on. Because really not that much time has passed, so he's, like, trying to, like, gather his resources in order to, like, make another leap. But, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a lot longer has gone on because we're going through an entire decade.
Yes, yeah.
But really in the comics time, it's
like 2 years there, like, total.
Yeah.
So it's only been like a year that he's been there.
Yeah, he's lived there maybe a year.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit longer.
Trying to get back on his feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love that he would have absolutely idolized Riva. Mm-hmm. And that this is just the kind of person he wanted to be. This wandering spirit who got to take life by the reins and really go out and see the world.
Go wherever she wanted and have company along with her.
Yeah. Drag company along with her. I love this, like, this passive younger Eli who was like, yes, I'll become a lawyer to fund your life. Do you know what I mean?
I would love to know, why would he choose law?
Well, Suzana. I come to law a lot.
Yeah.
In my writing. I think you've probably noticed. I think probably because it was something that I expected to go into myself.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of my characters either do go into it or violently don't. Do you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Start it and then stop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think probably because it's on my mind as something that I came very close to going into myself.
Yeah, fair enough.
If I were to give an in-character reason, I guess I would have expected, I would think that Eli thought of himself as being clever.
Yeah.
He's at least quick-witted.
Yeah. A debater.
Yeah, despite the fact that he is kind of at a disadvantage where he's also going into a system where he's also learning the language. Mm-hmm. But I think he would have expected himself to become very good at it. Yeah. And I think he would have felt confident that he had become very good at it.
Yeah.
And I think he would have gone into it, one, because he would have thought he'd be good at it. Mm-hmm. And then two, probably because it's one of those core professions that you know is quite lucrative.
Yeah.
It's like on that list of jobs where it's like, I want very badly to give my wife a good life.
Yeah.
Right? I want to support her. I am very hopeful we'll have a family someday. Mm-hmm. I'd like to support them too. I'd like to be profitable. I'd like to have like a lucrative life, a lucrative career.
Yeah.
And then for me, then there's also that personal aspect of,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I love that.
Yeah.
I think it builds a lot to what his character eventually became. Mm-hmm. Just because he is, like, so... He feels like someone who's, like, very staunch in law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they just exist in this constant... Everything has to go to a plan. Everything has to have rules and follows it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's probably not something that he would have ever expected for himself when he was younger, but did find himself falling to a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why Riva's so fun.
Yeah.
Because she's not
fair
that.
Enough, yeah. I wonder, when you put it that way, how much of who he is... Well, a lot of who he is now would be something that he's kind of, like, hardened into.
Yeah.
And it is kind of interesting to think of it that way, like, how much of it was his job.
Yeah.
And how much of it is how long he's been alone now. Probably a little of both, you know?
I'm sure he's very lonely.
I'm sure it's partially that he's very lonely. Mm-hmm. It's partially he was married for a very long time and is now very not. You know what I mean? On top of, it is probably a very stressful job.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's definitely, I'm sure it's all of the above that's kind of, like, hardened him into this, like, it can really stick by these rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just want it done one particular way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And as much as you would think there would be some value for flexibility, I think it probably is also easy to fall into this rut of, like, if it's done correctly, then it will go well.
Yeah.
Just do as I say. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I guess it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I like to analyze things like that sometimes when I, like, go through and look at the characters, and I don't know, like, whenever I like to see, like, what kind of job they ended up falling into, I want to understand why.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to analyze it because, I don't know, for, like, Dylan, he owns and manages a restaurant.
Yes.
Which he came into after being a chef.
Yes.
And he became a chef because his father owned the restaurant.
Yes.
So he now just took it over after his father passed away. So, like, that's why he has a restaurant now.
Yes.
It's not really relevant to the comic. It doesn't need to come up. But that is his backstory.
Right.
And so it does develop a lot of what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I do like, I like thinking of it from that perspective about why he'd probably be a little grumpy about how much Milo seems to be leaning toward the career that his mom would have wanted for him.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he did have, like, this idea that obviously it's just going to keep going down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Although I think that he personally probably, he's not so projecting as Eli was. Eli really expected Liam to become a lawyer, right?
He was hopeful.
He was very, very hopeful, and he kind of really built a lot on that expectation, right? Whereas Dylan he's, like, younger, and he's more flexible thinking himself. Do you know what I mean? And he's not quite so stuck in his ways and not so projecting. So, like, he's a little grumpy Milo went for acting instead.
Yeah.
But, like, he's also got more kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and barring everything else, he can sell it.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? He'll make some money. You know what I mean? So he's cranky about it, but it's not this huge thing and disappointment that it was for Eli.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For him, a lot of it is just that he lost to Nora.
Yes.
It's not even about Milo having chosen that, and it's like, oh, you were supposed to be in this job. It's like, no, straight up, he's just mad because Nora won again.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's just bitter.
Yeah.
And I love that about Dylan.
I do too.
I dislike it, but I also love it. That
yeah.
He is kind of flawed in that he struggles a lot with the fact that he is very jealous about her when it comes to the kids.
It was really fun for me to play with Milo's parents.
Yeah.
Kind of giving them the opposite problem and how arriving at the middle looks different for both of them.
Yeah.
But that it's important for both of them to still get to the middle.
Yeah.
Where Dylan was socially more accepting.
Yeah.
Like, understood Milo as a person, actually meant to connect with him more as a person, was accepting of his sexuality, was accepting of kind of the fact that, like, Milo's a little selfish, and, you know what I mean? And Dylan did the brunt of raising Milo, so he did roll with the punches of Milo being kind of selfish, and Milo being kind of...
He fed into it a little bit to keep Milo on his side, too.
Right, that's true.
That's part of the problem that Milo ran into.
That's true. But he still kind of got Milo at his worst and still rolled with it, and clearly is very accepting and loving still. Do you know what I mean? Like, Milo does not find it difficult to be able to look to Dylan for social comfort, if that makes sense. Like, he knows Dylan has his back in an emotional situation, right?
In a lot of ways, Dylan is one of Milo's best friends.
Right.
Just because Milo became one of Dylan's best friends.
Right.
He became very close to Milo, and they were the only people that each other had for a long period of time. Right. After Nora had left and taken the twins with her, the twins would have had visitation.
Sure.
But Milo wouldn't have seen them as much.
Right.
And now is seeing them more as a result of...
They're older. More autonomous, yeah.
And they now live with Dylan.
Yeah.
But, like... As long as they're fighting, he's not going to see them.
Right. And so I liked that component of, like, socially, Dylan has Milo's back. Emotionally, he has his back. but in terms of letting him choose for himself, and maybe that choice might be Nora, that's how he couldn't. Yeah. You know, that's the center he had to come to, whereas Nora had the opposite problem. Socially and emotionally was a little disconnected from Milo. Yeah. But was giving him the freedom to be more himself, and also very excited for him to pursue his own interests. And I think would have been excited for him even if it hadn't been her side. Yeah. Like, if it was like, if Milo had gone into culinary or something, I think she would have been like, anyway, I can help you with your career, let me... Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then had to come to the middle on the social aspects. Yeah. I don't know, I just thought that was... Yeah. It's kind of a fun...
Yeah, I always liked that about them. Like, because they're very young. They're like the opposite of these two. Yeah, for sure. Just like, they're very young parents, so they have young parent problems. Right. Whereas Eli and Riva have old parent problems.
Yeah, they have old people trying to be younger, suddenly problems. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun dynamic to explore on both ends. Yeah. Yeah, this page in particular ended up being a lot of fun to finally get to draw Eli and Riva being young and together. Yeah. Just enjoying each other and all their time that they actually had together. And you kind of see what their dynamic was like. Yeah. They spent almost 20 years together before Liam was even born. Yeah. Like, they were together for, like, a huge chunk of their life. Yeah. Like, as long as Liam has been alive, they were married already. Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. His life, the length of his life into the past before he was born is how long they were married before he was born. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about. Yeah. I like to think that they maybe had trouble conceiving at first. Yeah. And you know, it was partially, you know, Riva was obviously seeking a life of having freedom. Ready. Yeah, she wasn't ready. She didn't really want to settle down. Actually, she kind of wanted total freedom to, like, go out. And, you know what I mean? But I do like to think also it was not possible for some time, and it was a little bit of a surprise when it did come around. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. It's sad to me. I like to think also we don't see Riva's family ever in the comic. Yeah, and I don't know if we ever will. Yeah. And when I say I'm unsure, I know for a fact it will not be in these 21 chapters. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, in Toy, as it will exist, as we know it now, we won't ever see Riva's side of the family. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about this before. We're planning a sequel. I really want to do a sequel for Toy, and it's still, like, nebulous in my mind whether or not we'll ever see them then. But we will definitely absolutely not see them by the time this story is over. And I think, honestly, by this point in the comic, they would already not be in her life. Yeah. I like to think, no, I don't like to think it, but I imagine that her life with them was very, like, tumultuous. Yeah. That she fought with them a lot, fought with her parents a lot. And maybe even by the time that she met Eli, had kind of, like, separated. Do you know what I mean? Was living by herself. She was in her 20s. You know what I mean? And had kind of... I don't know if I'd go so far as to say, like, disowned them or anything like that, but had definitely sought to get away. Yeah, separated herself and not really gotten along with them at all. Yeah. And I like to think she, like, kind of fell into this life of traveling in order to, you know what I mean? She was not grounded in family. She wasn't grounded in, you know, her own roots or whatever. And she did not take any of that with her into her relationship. And even though she does go home with him eventually, they do not go home to reconnect with her family. Yeah. And she definitely stays very separate of them for the rest of her life, which is, I don't know, it's a little sad. I did wonder, and now I definitely have my answer, but when we were very early on in the comic, I wondered then if it would ever be something I'd touch on. Yeah. But now that here we are, chapter 19, I have my answer. No, we're not gonna, you know what I mean? But
it never really came up. There was one instance I can think of, and it was when, in a mini comic, when Liam was moving out of Eli's house, we get to hear Eli say that he understood Riva's father a little bit better.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think about that sometimes because we never really touched on exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. But he would have met Riva's father at some point. Yeah. Especially, like, because they got married. Yes. He's kind of a classic gentleman. Yeah, he would have wanted to have
he would have asked for permission. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And to hear from them what Riva was like. Yeah. To hear how much of a rapscallion and how much of a troublemaker. Yeah. How much she would have snuck out. Yeah. And how much she would have lied and cheated and all those things. Yeah. He would have probably not understood that until he had a son that was doing those same things.
What's the saying? It's like, may you have a son who's as much trouble as you are. Something it's like the old curse of, but it's like it accidentally went crisscross applesauce over to Eli instead.
Cursed her husband instead. Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. It's I totally forgot about that in that mini comic. Yeah.
I caught that on. I was glancing through for some reference for something with the room, and I caught that, and I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. The one time that we did really bring up him talking about her family is in that moment. Yeah. And, like, we never talk about it outside of it. There's just no reason.
You know, it's not relevant, really, to the story. Yeah. But, yeah, I do imagine that at this point, she's already kind of moved on, doing her own thing. Yeah. Living her own life.
But you know what? Good for her. Yeah. If you don't get along with your family... Oh, well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the people you find in life can be just as much family.
Yeah. That's definitely real.
Oh, Riva. I'll be sad. I'll be sad when the scene's done. I've waited so long for the scene, and I don't know.
It's already almost done. No.
I'm nervous. I hope how meaningful it is to me comes through. I always hope that with these big scenes that I'm really excited for. I really hope that how much they mean to me comes through, and I hope that I don't know. I hope they're as enjoyable as I enjoy them, even if a fraction as much as I enjoy telling them. I don't know. I really hope.
We put a lot of deep thought into each character's life, even when they're not even in the, the comic anymore.
It's true.
You just think very hard about their past and what it affects them.
I hope it's fun.
Me too.
And if not fun, I hope it's entertaining.
Yeah.
I hope it's enjoyable on some level. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's that. You see that in my pencil clicking? Yeah. All right, well, if you made it to this point, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming along on this ride. Appreciate you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Have a good one.